Greet those in the room, those that are watching online, and those that may watch the recording after the meeting. Unfortunately, with the whole CrowdStrike thing that beat up Microsoft over the weekend, it has affected our AV equipment, so we will be doing an audio recording to post after the meeting, but I'm told the updates that were forced after that have kind of interrupted our ability to do the live stream, unfortunately. So we're not as bad off as Delta because we're still starting on time, but we just won't have the ability for folks to watch remotely today. But before we begin, I'd like to ask our clerk and recorder, Rhonda, if you'd provide an invocation and lead us in the pledge.
Father, I just thank you today for this opportunity to come. And I thank you for these people that have come and are able to address their needs. Lord, I just ask you for wisdom for the commissioners as they govern, Lord, and I just thank you for providing protection for our first responders in our county and all of our elected officials. And I thank you for sending your son. In Jesus' name, amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, we are live.
We are live.
Okay, well, I retract everything and thank you very much to our IT department for jumping on that at the very last minute. So if anybody heard me online that you can't hear us online, I was obviously wrong. Thanks. So with that, Emily, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Thayer?
Here.
Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
Commissioner Schroeder?
Here.
All righty. We have a quorum. It is 9:03. Our first item of business is approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add an item to discussion, if I may. Item H5, discussion from our town hall in Elbert and possible action if anything comes from that discussion.
Okay, are you okay with that?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we include Commissioner Schroeder's comments in the agenda and move for the approval of that adjusted agenda.
Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the addition with, to approve the agenda with the addition of a fifth item under discussion on discussion of last week's town hall and potential action if there's anything that comes out of that discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. All righty. So our first items of business are the items on consent.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the items on the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the items on consent. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. The items on consent are approved. Sherry, I know we had the quarterly reports. Did you want to provide a little? If you can get up, we'll have to spread the rows out a little. Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sherry Hewlett, the Elbert County Treasurer and Public Trustee. I had my second quarter report on the agenda this morning. No big significant changes as far as last year at this time. We're at 17 new foreclosures for 2024. And so far in 2024, we've had 13 withdrawals. No sales this year, so all indications are folks are catching up on what they're behind on, so that's a good thing. But the only significant change that happened July 1st was the public trustee fees due to House Bill 1443. Those public trustee fees, the fees that we collect to fund our office, doubled. So for instance, a withdrawal was a $30 fee, is now $60. So some of those fees, well, all of them doubled. And that primarily has been in the works for many, many years, because a lot of the smaller counties are not able to even fund their public trustee office because they don't make the fees to do so. The public trustee is funded by those fees. It's not a county-funded department, so that bill was finally signed and put into effect July 1st. We've not, in Elbert County, had a problem with that, although our excess funds have been lower since, COVID and things like that. So, but we're doing good here. But other than that, I don't see any uptick in foreclosures at this point. Release of deeds of trust, as you can see, second quarter last year, we're down this second quarter by 56, which is not terrible. So I don't see any problems moving forward. And as far as the treasurer's office is concerned, we're 96% collected on taxes. So we're doing good there, probably higher than that today. I didn't look this morning, but we're right on track for having a good collection amount before the tax lien sale. So any questions?
I have none. Do you?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, and I do appreciate it. I know it's kind of a double-edged sword when you have to fund an office off of bad things happening to
Right,
people
yeah.
in financial distress. So it's a good thing when revenues in that department are down because it means folks are doing well. But I know it impacts our, the overall fund if we have to push money into it. So thank
Right.
you.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Susan, did you have anything? Okay. Rhonda? Nope. Okay, we'll move to staff. Monty, I know you had an update on our paving projects.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. Monty Hankins, Elbert County Public Works Director. Both of the paving projects that we currently have going in the county, County Road 158 between County Road 1 and County Road 13 is in full swing, as well as the paving project of County Road 166 between Delbert and County Road 13. Let me start with County Road 158. That has been in process for some time now. Should be completed by the end of next week. The topping that they're putting on that, the road topping, is a kind of a newer asphalt product, but it's quickly becoming the standard in the asphalt world. It's called a stone mastic asphalt. I did some research on this. It's supposed to provide better traction, reduce noise, and it extends the lifespan of the asphalt because it has a little bit of a bigger rock but a higher oil content to it. So it does look kind of strange, but I think it's going to be a really good product for future use. Like I say, that project should be completed by next week. We have had a couple traffic control issues out on that road, and we have heard from some residents on that, and we have addressed those on a daily basis. So I've had a supervisor go out and keep on top of the project, both projects for that matter, and he has addressed the traffic control issues out there on 158. As well as we've made Martin Marietta aware of that traffic control company could use some upgrading or training.
That's a subcontractor to them.
Yeah. The other project, County Road 166, is also being done by Martin Marietta. The topping on that road will be your standard 3/4 inch mix asphalt. It'll look smoother, it'll look like normal asphalt. So we didn't use the new product on that, but after we watch how 158 performs, we might transition into that once we do other projects within the county. They have widened the shoulders on that road. Should be done with that by the end of this week, and starting Monday, they will start milling out the old asphalt on that stretch of road, and then by Thursday, they'll start laying the new asphalt in. They're actually running quite a bit ahead of schedule because they were supposed to be done around first 2 weeks of September, and they're thinking they can be completed by August 15th. So that job should be ahead of schedule.
They'll beat the start of school or.
Yeah, I think
close.
I think the elementary school up there starts August 12th, so we may run into a couple days of being there with school, but the company is well aware that they have to work around the school schedule. Like I said, both projects are being done by Martin Marietta, and that has been really excellent communication. They provide me and my staff a full-on weekly schedule every week in like a Excel document, all kinds of communication as to the challenges or ahead of schedule items that they're working with. So that has been very professional and very much appreciated. I think both roads are gonna end up a very well, project well done with that company. Guys have any questions?
Not necessarily on those, appreciate that work. I know we discussed just briefly yesterday, the work that's being done on Kiowa Bennett and then in Elbert, if you could give us a
Sure.
update on the patchwork there.
Kiowa Bennett, last year we did struggle with asphalt patching due to the flooding. We were way behind schedule. We kind of ran out of summer once we did get to finally start patching. So Kiowa Bennett kind of got neglected in the patching last summer because we focused more on the issues we were having in the northwest corner. So our asphalt crew has spent quite some time on Kiowa Bennett this year. I think we're into 2 months now of nonstop patching on that road, and we'll probably be there all next week as well. After that, we will be moving to Elbert Road to start patching. It's gonna be a challenge to get everything done again this year, just because it's really kind of a new thing for us that what the flooding did affected so much beyond just washing roads out. I mean, last year it affected the weed spraying. We didn't even do any. This year, that has been extensive. Since we didn't do any last year, that made us have to do more this year. Patching, same way. So it's kind of a snowball effect, for lack of better terms, with the flooding from last year. So yeah, we'll be stretched to get everything patched up this summer too before winter sets in. But yeah, we're almost done, and we will be moving to Elbert Road. I know there are some concerns with Elbert Road, so we will be going there next.
Very good, I appreciate it. And the ripples from last summer continue, and
Yeah,
we understand.
for sure. Yeah, very much so.
The more we communicate that, the better everybody can understand what's going on.
And speaking of that, the final repair we're doing from the flooding on the roads is County Road 112 out east of Kiowa here, and the guys are getting really close. We're hoping to have that thing completely wrapped up by August 15th.
And that was a pretty significant break.
Yeah, that one was our biggest road loss as far as scope of work and width. So yeah.
When you saw what looked across the gap and you can see a pickup sitting over what used to be roadway that's 12, 15 feet below the road surface was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was a big one.
No, you guys are doing well. I went out and drove 158, 166. I saw the acceleration lane coming off 178 going north on Elbert looks complete. That was good. And then came back down Kiowa Bennett, and yeah, I do want you to pass on our thanks to your crews, because when you start by looking at Martin Marietta's projects and the equipment they have and the crews they have doing that, they're knocking it out. They're doing a great job. But when you come down to see what our guys are doing with the limited equipment we have and the small roller and a road grader's doing the initial spreading, I mean, it's the outcome of what they do though is tremendous. I know we can't afford, and we don't do enough asphalt ourselves for the big equipment that the big contractors bring in, but there's a lot to be said for the heart that goes into using what we have and what they are doing for our folks as they travel those roads. So thank you very much for that.
You bet. I'll pass that along. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Monty. And Tiffany, I think we had an update from finance.
Morning, Commissioners. Tiffany Hermes, Finance Director. Just going to give you a quick update on where we're at with the audit and kickoff for budget. We do have some additional testing that has to be done for our single audit. And due to that, there is a compliance issue that they can't issue our financial audit until they have that completed as well. So we have filed an extension with the state and have been approved. And so now our goal for both single and financial are for August for both of those to be submitted. As far as budget, some of the key dates, August 21st, rough drafts are supposed to be due. All departments and funds have access to their budgets and have been able to get in and start working on that, put in their 2024 forecasts as well. Another key date is September 18th, which we are having the workshop for all of the general fund departments to come and present their requests for 2025. Do you all have questions for me?
Explain a little bit more complete what that separate side audit is.
The single audit?
Yes.
So the single audit is anything with federal funding. So any of our programs that we get for federal funding for, it has to have a separate audit to make sure that we're in compliance using those federal dollars. And then our financial is obviously for just our financial side and making sure that we are using our funding and being correct with that.
And my understanding on that is it affects our Human Services Department, which is really
This year, yes.
a state function, and we had some work the state was doing that didn't get completed until this week, that the auditors are just making sure it doesn't impact.
Correct. This is actually kind of a trickle down from COVID still, actually, so.
All right, well, but anything for Tiffany? No, thank you. Looking forward to getting rolling on next year's budget, and probably I know there's still one more election to come, but Mr. McDaniel, obviously you are more than welcome, and I hope you are available to kind of participate in the September session when we start looking at next year's budget, because it's one you're going to be, I guess, settled with or fortunate to have, depending on how things go. But thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other staff reports? Okay. Seeing none, I'd open for open public comment at this time. It's an opportunity for folks to bring issues to our attention that aren't necessarily going to be discussed on the agenda today. We do ask folks to keep to a 3-minute limit, and just we need your name and address for the record. And then once anybody that would like to speak has spoken, we'll address those things that we can hear. Others we may, if there's issues that we have to bring to staff, we'll do so. So with that, I'd open for public comment at this time. Michelle, hello.
I just jump up quickly because I'm going to make it short and brief. So citizen Michelle Ingersoll, 8445 County Road 122, Kiowa. So good morning, Commissioners. Quickly, just wanted to let you know that the request to add a question to the November 2024 ballot to give the Elbert County citizens a choice, if given the opportunity, if it ever came up, to re-elect a candidate for a 3rd consecutive term for the departments of the assessor, clerk and recorder, coroner, surveyor, treasurer, public trustee, and also the sheriff. After running a 3-month survey, the responses were positive. The average was 70.43% for that they would like to approve, and that they would like to continue for a 3rd term. There is a group of supporters to help carry on promoting the issue once we know that it would be on the ballot. So that's what's got to be known first. And for ballot language and also for the survey results, there's a couple more options.
Okay. Okay.
So there's the original option for ballot language, and then, like I said, some options there to reduce it and make it shorter. That's it. I thank you. Anything?
This is an updated list from your survey.
Correct, yeah.
If I'm reading right, we're almost to 200 responses. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And it expired Monday, so it wouldn't let
Okay.
any more come in.
Thank you.
Nope, thank you. I appreciate the additional information. Okay. Do we have any others, ma'am?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Robin O'Mara, and I live in Arapahoe County, and I've been a resident of Colorado State for 31 years. I'm a volunteer with United Sovereign Americans, not a spokesperson. United Sovereign Americans is a nationwide organization with thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states. Today, I come to you as a concerned citizen, sharing alarming information about our state's voter database, uncovered through thousands of hours of research conducted by our highly qualified and credentialed data team. While the numbers are staggering and somewhat difficult to comprehend, one thing is clear: they don't add up. Just like your checkbook must balance, so must our votes. If you had 10,000 fewer dollars in your checking account that you had to deposited, you would certainly want to know what happened to those dollars if they weren't there. And if a company had that significant a discrepancy in its books, the company would most certainly conduct an audit. In fact, yearly audits are required by law for all public companies. Our audit of the 2022 election, using only official data provided by state election officials, shows that the 2022 election may not have been accurate or legally compliant. We are not saying one candidate won over another or that any other election should be overturned. The state's official data from a certified election shows that the votes, as counted, were not valid and accurate under the law. Today, we will present with you a resolution demanding an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections, along with a summary of our findings and the laws that apply. We are happy to meet with you to go over this information, including more detail about the specific findings. If you have questions that I cannot answer now, I will commit to getting those answers for you in writing from the United Sovereign Americans executive team as soon as possible. This data and our request for investigation have been shared with state election officials and law enforcement. It's essential that you, as our representatives, make it clear that these issues must be taken seriously. Today we come to you, our closest elected representatives, for support and action. We're asking that you listen to the resolution, ask questions if you have them, and then vote promptly for its passage. Your action on this resolution will illustrate your dedication and support to the concerns of your constituents and your county and country. Our next three speakers will read the resolution in three parts, and our final speaker will conclude our presentation. I thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Paul Lecheski, 5722 South Kalispell Court in Centennial, Colorado. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to start with the resolution. This is a resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is recognized civil right in the United States, it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. And the right of suffrage can be denied by debasement or dilution of the weight of a citizen's vote just as effectively as by wholly prohibiting the free exercise of the franchise. That's from Reynolds versus Sims, 1964. Whereas it is the duty of our election officials to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion or manipulation. Congress seeks to guard the election of members of Congress against any possible unfairness by compelling everyone concerned in holding the election to a strict and scrupulous observance of every duty devolved upon him while so engaged. The evil intent consists in disobedience to the law. That's from Coy, 1888. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the following four tenets of an election are upheld. Number one, the voter rolls must be accurate. That's from the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. Number two, votes counted must be from eligible voters. U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 2. Number three, the number of voters counted must equal the number of voters who voted. And number four, there can be no more than one in 125,000 ballots, excuse me, in error by the voting system. That's from the Help America Vote Act of 2002. And whereas an open source audit of the Colorado 2022 general election conducted by Colorado state citizens has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies I'm sorry, that violate both federal and state laws, including 1,468,211 ineligible, uncertain registration violations found within the Colorado State Voter Roll Database. 100,938 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrants. 34,912 more votes counted than voters who voted in the 2022 general election. No one knows who cast those votes. And 100,917 apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election.
Commissioners, that's 3 minutes.
I know you were doing this in several parts. If you could roll through yours, we'll.
Yeah, I've just got 2 more sentences here. Thank you. The maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election in Colorado was 21. That's how many were allowed. Certification as defined by law and attestation of accuracy and compliance appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. All right, thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Scott Russell. I'm a retired firefighter from Castle Rock. My address is 9362 Lozier Street. I'm going to continue where he left off. Whereas these findings trample legal and accuracy requirements of the voting system during a federal election. Accuracy is defined by the ability of the system to capture and report the specific selections and the absence of selections made by the voter without error. Whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted. Certification of an election that varies from the law is an abridgment of the civil rights of the citizens, a fraud ab initio. From United States v. Throckmorton of 1878, and I quote, "From time immemorial, an election to the public office has been, in point of substance, no more or no less than the expression of qualified electors of their choice of candidates." And that's the United States v. Classic of 1941. And whereas the Colorado's 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of a guaranteed protection of our natural rights under a government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damages to our family, our way of life, and the fabric of the United States. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to provide relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of law. Number one, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility to register and vote, not anonymous attestation. Number two, voter rolls certified, accurate, and available for public review and challenges 30 days before the start of early voting. Voters added after that date must bring proof of citizenship, identity, and address in person to be a qualified and official at each polling place. Hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency Where imaging technology is used for tabulation, the security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. And number 4, systems, machines, securities, measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with the federal law for fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Chris Hoagland. Thank you for this opportunity to present before you. I live at 3041 South Franklin Street in Englewood, Colorado. I've been a Colorado resident for 50 years and a resident of Englewood for over 30. And I'm continuing the previous comments. Item number 5. Adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witnesses after being given full and effective observation rights. Candidates and trained citizens must be allowed immediate access to ballots, ballot images, and cast vote records. 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations and systems must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability and witness transfer with papered records. A National Institute of Standards and Technology, also known as NIST, compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2, must be performed. These audits are to be conducted by qualified, insured, and bonded security, forensics, or financial auditors, not personnel from within the election system. Reconciliation will include the vote count, real physical ballots, adjudication, cast vote records, ballot count, qualified voter count, custody transfer, and all other paper and electronic election systems, including logs. 8, if the total of all unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held for those candidates affected unless the issues can be provably corrected by manual hand recount and a full review of records. 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration to certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded. And then there's a resolution to follow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am.
Hello, I'm Karen Tallentire, 5356 South Crocker Street, Littleton. I live in Arapahoe County, of course, and I have been a resident of Colorado for almost 30 years. I am also a volunteer and not an official spokesperson with United Sovereign Americans. You just heard a powerfully written resolution outlining massive inaccuracies in our 2022 election, from registration through certification. In it, you heard us ask for meaningful remedies that will proactively protect the validity of the 2024 general election for all Americans. In fact, the resolution cited many U.S. Supreme Court precedents that support the need for such actions. Laws are being ignored. Bottom line, the checkbook is not balancing, and we need certainty. The voting system, which controls our most vitally important right, the right to choose our representatives, is not producing an accurate, trustworthy result. Do you think that these anomalies within our election system, a system which is part of our national security infrastructure, should continue to be ignored? How much is it costing us to not fix the problem? How much is it costing our GDP, our military, our foreign policy, our health, the self-esteem of our children and young people? And how much is it costing our dignity to keep fighting each other? The cost is immeasurable, so I urge you to show your agreement by passing the resolution. Our website showcasing our initiatives nationwide has some extremely informative videos that explain the anomalies and apparent violations of law that are found here in Colorado, as well as in other states. The website is uniteforfreedom.com. That's unite4freedom.com. I encourage you to check it out and learn more about our organization. One more time, that's unite4freedom.com. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Commissioners. My
Morning,
name
ma'am.
is Mila Schusterman. I live in Centennial, Colorado. I live in Colorado for almost 25 years. We had a little glitch. I will provide you with the copy of our resolution with your names. The copy was provided to the clerk without your names, so you will be able to look at the numbers and everything. So I'm sorry, it's my
Thank you.
fault.
That was going to be one of our.
Yeah, you will have the copy of our resolution to sign. So I want to make, and I have some flyers for United Southern America. I will leave it with the clerk. So what you heard today is the culmination of thousands of hours of work by our highly qualified and credentialed volunteer data teams from Colorado and across the country. Let's step back for a second and look at the big picture. Large numbers of Americans, including many right here in Colorado, have questions about the trustworthiness of our elections. I think we can all agree that we wish this was not the case, but official data shows these concerns are valid. And the law says resolving them is essential in securing our liberty. At the same time, government representatives at all levels are not being transparent or responsive to what our citizen audits have found. Our right to choose our representatives in legally valid and transparent elections is the foundation upon which our constitutional republic was established. That right has been bravely protected over the past 2.5 centuries by the sacrifices of our brothers, fathers, mothers, and sisters. You on this board today have a chance to show everyone who defended American liberty and the citizens you represent that you value it also by passing the resolution demanding a valid general elections in 2024. We appreciate your time and attention. I promise to provide you with the resolution, and we truly hope that you will be able to sign it. If you have any questions, we can provide you the data, the scorecard, how the numbers were achieved. The numbers are from the Secretary of State. It just ran through the program and shows the discrepancies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, folks, for, I know that was well coordinated, and I appreciate, and a lot of information. I think you've found, well, one, welcome to Elbert County. Thank you for coming to visit. I think you probably found a board and a community that's very sympathetic to what you provided today. I do want to kind of come back and address what we've heard, but just reading the room, I believe we had one more person for public comment, and then we'll close public comment and respond to everything. So, Don, morning.
Good morning. Don Gray, 16,000 Highway 86. I'm on the board of the ECEA. Thank you, folks, for that presentation, by the way. An update on Excel. There's been published papers and online that Excel's asked for an extension of 75 days on their overall project. Now, my understanding is the Pathway project is part of that extension. They've asked for 75 days. The concern is supply chain. They want more money. And it's going to go back to the ratepayers to get that money. And it's concern of the PUC, who's the one coordinating the extension and what will eventually probably be a request for more money in order to do this. The state mandate's given them a date that they have to reach, and now they're concerned that they can't reach it. Shock of all shock. We've told them all along that they can't reach this by going through what they're doing. As far as Elbert County directly, they've went stone quiet. We haven't heard anything from them for almost a month now. Again, they told us early on that they would put in an application to the county by the end of last month, and now we're approaching the end of this month, and we still, I assume the county hasn't heard anything from them. Thanks for your time. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Don. We actually do have one, I hesitate to call it an update, but a piece of information. And our community development director had reached out just to say, hey, we had heard previously that we were going to see something by the end of June. We haven't seen anything. What's going on? What was shared with him is they're now looking at the middle of the next quarter to submit. That's a little fuzzier than the end of a month, but we'll see. And that probably tracks with the request for extension as well. So we'll keep our ear to the ground, and certainly I know you're a regular attendee, so you'll know as soon as we do anything that changes on that. But I guess to draw back to our visitors today, again, very much thank you for the presentation. We will certainly read through the resolution and the supporting information. We here are very concerned and take the integrity of the vote very seriously in this county. There's a former clerk and recorder sitting next to me. There's our current in the room, and he's probably got more comments than I, but I've been personally disturbed for quite a while to continue to hear from sources and highly elected officials at the state that our state has the gold standard. There is fool's gold out there, potentially, but it seems to be, that statement seems to be continuously used as a cover to not try to improve something. I mean, just because it's the best doesn't mean it can be better. Any work of man is going to be flawed, and we need to continue to look for flaws and tighten up our system. I do think we've been very blessed in our own county, and I will sing the praises of our current and former clerk. Our current clerk was our elections manager. They have put a lot of time and effort to ensure transparency. We've done hand counts to confirm after the fact. We know, obviously we're working off the voter rolls that we are given, but at least in terms of every ballot that is properly cast is accurately counted. I believe this county is doing the right things. We are in the process of examining potential change in who our vendor is for voting machines, and we've asked a lot. We had quite a lengthy workshop a month or so ago where a competitor to the current system gave a very detailed, thorough walkthrough of their system with us, a demonstration. Our current vendor chose not to participate, did not want to talk to us in anything that they, and flatly stated not in a public meeting. They talked to us individually, but would not participate in a public meeting, which I find disturbing. But with that, those are all I have to pass on today, but if Grant or Dallas have anything.
No, I appreciate those comments, Commissioner Richardson, and as Chris stated, I was a clerk here for 10 years before I got into this seat, so I'm very familiar with many of the items that you brought up. Those were items of discussion over many years within the department, that really where our focus needs to be is on the voter rolls and to make sure that they're clear and clean, and so I appreciate your efforts with that. Part of the problem with the voter rolls is there's several layers, but part of it is that the hands of the clerk and recorders are really tied on how a voter may be removed from the rolls. And so that is definitely something that needs to be evaluated and looked at. Some of the things that we implemented was be able to do a random report and see how many different people were registered to vote at the same address. And it wasn't occurring a lot in Elbert. We're a smaller county, but we were able to investigate those and make sure that there was nothing unseemly going on there. There wasn't. But there's some extra steps that definitely could be made across the state, looking at the voter rolls, doing checks like that. And one of the big ones is you got to give the clerk and recorders more discretion to be able to remove people that we know are no longer county residents or have moved, and not just wait so long for them to not return a ballot. Chris mentioned also here, as far as hand count since 2020, from my tenure over there and continued now to the new clerk and recorder, every election has had some sort of a hand count verification to the machine count, whether it was doing an entire ballot and doing an entire race, or doing a sampling that was a bottom up instead of a top down of what our current audit does. And each time we verified that the count was correct here in Elbert County. And so part of what you were talking about, being able to balance and prove where everything came from, that's definitely part of that, and it needs to be added to it. So I do appreciate that added part of that. I also approve and agree with your part of the resolution talking about ID requirements for people to vote. We require IDs for so many things in this country except for voting, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm sympathetic to your resolution, but I certainly want to take a harder look and be able to read it and investigate it. The extra data that you have, I'd certainly love to look at, but I appreciate your efforts and appreciate your time today.
And if I may, since you showed up, if I can give you a task. I'm assuming that you are meeting with lots of boards and councils. This doesn't seem, if you did this just for us, thank you so much for your effort. But if you could, it may be a little outside your wheelhouse, but the effort to bring ranked choice voting into the state, if that could be an aside to what you're presenting and spreading the word, is something like that that's just completely inauditable. The concern that we would have to send our data to the state to let them tell us who may have won a race that covers more than one jurisdiction and have no way of knowing whether that's accurate or not. Frankly, it's appalling. We've been able to go with the winner takes all votes since we were in grade school, and what you learned in kindergarten is all you need to know sometimes. That works, people understand it. We can continue to work to perfect that process. So if you got room in your presentations to add that caution as you speak to folks, I think it's very important that word, that. Oh, okay, I have signed it, but yeah, no, and I totally get it. But if you're working that avenue as well separately, I applaud that. So thank you so much for coming out today. I hope you enjoy your time in Elbert County. You buy some food across the street or gas or spend some money here. We'd appreciate it. But thank you so much for your time today. All right. All righty. We'll take I guess we're moving on to our Board of Health. Do you need to bring up some slides, or? Okay, so we'll take a brief recess until the slides are up for our Board of Health, and then we will recess and come back and reconvene as our board. All righty, we're going to go ahead and come back into session. It is 9:54. Could I have a motion to open as the Board of Health?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we open as the Board of Health.
Second.
Motion and a second to open as a Board of Health. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Welcome to our quarterly Board of Health meeting. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you, much appreciated. I'm Sarah McIntosh. I'm the Interim Public Health Director, and I am going to be leading the Board of Health meeting today. Oops, sorry, it just popped out of my slideshow. Give me 1 second to restart, and I'll get you going again. So our agenda for today is as follows. We have a couple staffing updates that I want to bring everybody up to speed on, as well as some of the program updates that we offer our primary care clinic, environmental health, and where we are as far as vital records, and some new health promotion and our community health improvement plan. Move forward into the next one. So again, as I said, I'm Sarah McIntosh. I was formerly the public health nurse here with Elbert County. I've been with us since 2021, and have taken over the role of interim health director at the moment. And we just wrapped up our interviews. I was going to say an update to what I said here. We actually have an offer, and it has been accepted for an administrative assistant position who will be running our front desk and helping with our clinic. And we expect her to be starting in the middle of August. And then at that point, we will plan to transition our current administrative assistant into the environmental health specialist 1 role, because Stacy Reinhardt is the gal that currently does our well and septic and restaurant inspections, will be retiring this fall. Kind of updates on our primary health clinic. This is just a reminder that we are still open. We offer services Monday through Thursday for folks. These are our 2 nurse practitioners who are here with us. Currently, each one is here 1 day a week, and Dawn is just about back from her maternity leave, and she will be joining us. We offer well visits, we offer vaccination services, we offer sick visits, and we also work with LabCorp and Quest for anybody who has providers outside of Elbert County and needs to have blood work drawn and sent. We are happy to do that for you guys as well. So here is kind of a brief overview of some of our clinic data since we opened the clinic in late 2022. You can see this quarter we're down just a little bit. However, 2 things that to kind of speak to with that. Dawn has been on maternity leave since mid-May. Whoa, that's really loud. Sorry. And so our visits were down a little bit last quarter, and with the medical billing, you tend to see a lag. So visits that we had in quarter 1 is some of the payments that we're seeing in quarter 2. So this quarter, you can see we have spent a lot of time on marketing and advertising the clinic services, and we went from 93 appointments scheduled last quarter to 185 this quarter. So I'm optimistic that next quarter we'll start to see some revenue generating come up with that. Again, most of them in looking at our numbers are going to be in our lab visits is where you'll see the new ones. Most people are taking advantage of that service being on.
So that is using your lab for like pre-surgical tests?
Well,
or others,
pre-surgical
or-
well visits. So
Okay.
one of the things we've heard is one of our partners in the community who sees patients had a phlebotomist there that would draw lab work for their patients. They no longer have their phlebotomist in office. So what they are doing is sending us their orders, and we're just drawing and sending the specimens off for them. So they're not high revenue generating visits for us, but it's getting people in the door, it's offering a service back to the community, and it's letting them know we're here if they need anything else. This is kind of a general tracker so that you can track our clinic visits by month. So the one small one on the far right you can see is the 2022 visits, just because we were only open briefly, but that's a way you can kind of trend and see where we are as compared to the last year. So definitely all of our numbers are coming up as far as people figuring out that we're out there. A reminder as well, we do offer sports physicals, especially as school's getting ready to start for kiddos. We offer them in office for $20, or we can bill insurance for families that would prefer to do it that way. But we are also partnering with some of the local schools and doing on-site clinics at their schools by demand as well. So we did one out at Big Sandy a couple weeks ago, and we have one scheduled in Elizabeth coming up next month. Moving on to environmental health and the well and septic. So this is our OWTS. These are the permits that we've issued this year to date. We did not break it out by quarter, but I could if you'd like to see that data. But as you can see, our numbers are a little bit down from previous years. Unfortunately, what we're seeing as far as septic inspections is as the cost of materials go up, less and less people are building new septic systems. So I anticipate at some point that will turn around and we'll start to see those numbers come back up. And then here's kind of another view of the inspections that we're sending out on. Again, like I said, not quite halfway to where we were last year at this time. And again, one more slide on that. This is the revenue that's generated from our OWTS. And this moves into our food and restaurant licensing inspection. So this covers all of our brick and mortar restaurants. This covers all of our food trucks. We do anticipate another surge coming in the next couple months for anybody that's got a food truck that's only operational during the summer. But predominantly this program, most people renew their license at the beginning of the year. So you're always going to see a heavier number in January's than you are as the year progresses. The last service that we offer is our vital records, and this has been doing very well. So this is when folks need to get a birth certificate or a death certificate. We can issue them for anyone that was born or passed away in the state, and we are well on track to surpass the number that we issued last year. One comment on these vital record numbers. If you go back and compare these to our previous slides and previous Board of Health meetings, you probably will notice a difference in the numbers that you're seeing from the 2022 and 2023 data. So the Colorado Vital Record System has changed the program we use that issues the certificates, and it actually gives us a more accurate count, as opposed to prior to we were just counting them manually. So there was some manual error where we missed duplicates that were issued as far as our numbers. So these numbers are going to be a little bit higher than what you've seen in previous slides. Here's the revenue that we've generated year to date for vital records. And then our health promotion updates. So this is something we've been focusing a lot on, is our community outreach. So we've made a point to be at all of the community events so that they know we're here, that they know they can come to us if they have questions. We were out at Elizabeth and Elbert Days. We are looking to go to any of the resource fairs as well as the back to school nights at all of the schools this year, just so that they know the services that we're offering and we can become integrated back in the community. We also plan to attend the Elizabeth 5K Color Run and the Fall Festival this fall. In addition to that, our next slide is on our health fair. So in years past, we've worked with Health 365 or 9 Health, which offered health screenings for folks that didn't make it into the doctor. Unfortunately, Health 365 has closed their doors and they are no longer offering those services to folks. So we are gonna actually have a booth at the Elbert Fair on August 3rd at 12:30 to 5. We'll be in the Ag Building for anybody that wants to do low-cost health screenings. And I will introduce Miss Lisa on this one because she's kind of heading this one up. So unfortunately, one of the trends we've seen in the county has been an increase in our suicide rates. So this is a program that's put on by CSU Extension and that they offer as a film festival. We feed people dinner and invite them to come and visit and kind of build a community. So Lisa, do you want to tell us a little bit more about this program?
If you could use the mic just so it does get to the live stream. Thanks.
And everyone that's listening in the community. So really, we're just using this to get a gauge on where our community is right now. We're really wanting to create community support and kind of take the government piece out. We want communities to support community. So this is really what this film is about. It's to get the community members together to talk about what they can do, what they want to do to support either post-suicide or suicide prevention, where we want to go with that. And there's a model out in Rocky Ford right now. They call it the Coffee Shop Project. I went down and visited with them, and it's amazing. Their support staff is amazing. The people in the community are amazing. So I'm hoping that we will be able to duplicate that, or at least learn from their role in this, how we can support our community. So this is just a starting point, talking about it, and we'll go from there. Dinner is free, tickets are free, and both of the films are wonderful. If you can't be there, we suggest that you go onto YouTube and at least look at the legacy video. It's very empowering for people. So, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions on that before I move on? As I say, basically the idea is this is hard on everybody, and we thrive in community. So this is just about bringing people together and giving them a safe place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we'll have ads and stuff for it at the fair while we're there as well, so that hopefully we can draw on that.
Thank you very much for bringing this in, because it is significant. And in the rural areas, we tend to want to be self-sufficient. Everybody's willing to help a neighbor, but sometimes those neighbors aren't asking for the help. So.
That's the number one problem. It is really, really hard to ask for help, both if you're the one that's struggling with depression or if you're the family that's left behind in that case. And honestly, it's about support in numbers. It's not necessarily about going and talking about everything you're going through. It's about talking about life. What's going on with you? What do you need? What can we do to support? And sometimes it's just a distraction. So it's an important thing. Okay. One other thing, we've been hosting our quarterly blood drives. So we partner with Vitalent, and they come out to the exhibit building on the fairgrounds every 3 months to host blood drives. As you can see, we're kind of trending down a little bit in our numbers as far as folks attending. We'll see if we'll continue to watch that and see. We like to continue to host and have them here. It's not a big lift for us, and it is a big lifesaver for those around. So you can look at our numbers. One thing I did want to clarify, if you're looking at the total donors versus the total units donated, there is a little bit of a difference sometimes because they offer what they call a power red donation. So if you meet certain criteria, they can actually, in one trip, one visit, get 2 units of blood from one person. So that's why those numbers are a little bit higher. So we encourage you to come out and donate with us. We are hosting our next drive on October 9th at 10 to 2. We do have a link on our website to register and sign up in advance. If you do that, you can fill out some of the pre-screening forms before you get there. But they have a very substantial team that comes out here. So if you forget to register, decide last minute you want to join, they do take walk-ins as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Updates on our community health improvement plan. So we partnered with ML Proser, who just completed our community health improvement plan. To explain a little bit about this, a couple years back we did a community health needs assessment, which is reaching out to the community, figuring out what you need from us, and kind of building a plan as to how the health department can strive to serve the public. So the health assessment was done year and a half ago. And the community health improvement plan is built off of that. So once that gets finalized, I have a couple little teeny tiny tweaks, and then we will get that posted and submitted to you guys as well as to the state. Last update I just want to touch on briefly, because it's been in the news a lot, is the highly pathogenic avian influenza, if anybody's heard anything about that. It circulated a couple years ago in poultry, and it has come back. The attention was originally to dairy cattle, was where it was associated. There was one human case at first identified in northeastern Colorado. There have since been 6 more cases identified, but this time they're associated with poultry farms. Right now, there is no farms that are affected within Elbert County. The affected counties are Larimer, Weld, Kit Carson, Morgan, and Washington. At this time, there is not a high risk with this to humans. In most of the people, it's presenting as a conjunctivitis or pink eye. So they're testing those samples. Some have mild respiratory symptoms. It is still it still has a high mortality rate in poultry. And so that's part of why they watch it, in addition to the fact that a flu virus has a big potential for mutations. So that's why they're watching it so close. It's not transmitting to humans through the food, as long as you're cooking your food appropriately and drinking pasteurized milk. I threw a couple guidances in here in case you have any more interest in learning more about it, and threw in our number as well as CDPHE's information. If you have any questions about testing, if you're concerned that there's any cases, they are offering masks, gloves to any farm communities that have interest in having them. If you're interested, contact CDPHE and they can get them set up with them. As far as fair season coming up, the Department of Ag is providing all the guidance as far as animal handling to help prevent the spread so that you're not picking it up from other farmers that may have something going on.
And I know that that's being followed, and talking with our extension office and fair president, that they're
You got it.
taking this seriously. So.
It is. And at this point, like I said, it's just monitoring, but be aware that it is there, and there have been increased cases. Unfortunately, Colorado is kind of the hot zone right now, and part of that is just because of our high number of livestock in the state compared to some of the other states.
And I just
one quick
for the folks out there, what I believe, I think, is the process is for any poultry being brought into the fair, it's a terminal fair for that. They will be taken, judged, and processed. They're not going to be returning any poultry to flocks back at home, so there's to be no concerns about cross-contamination from one ill bird going back into other people's homes. So just like many of the animals, it is a terminal fare, but I do appreciate the work you're doing
Absolutely.
and those involved with the fair as well.
Yes, a shout out to Callie. One quick update, we did offer a scholarship to one of the local county high school seniors. We did have 3 applicants that came in kind of last minute on that, and we were able to, as a team, pick out the one that won. So congratulations to Jordan Peralt of Kiowa. She was a graduating senior last year. Those were some of the eligibility requirements. She will get a $500 award that was funded by Dwayne and is with the Elbert County Foundation and will be awarded through there.
Say, as we roll into budget season, let's talk some more about that if we want to continue it in partnership with the Elbert Foundation. So, thanks.
Absolutely. Just a reminder, I was going to say, if you have any concerns regarding environmental health monitors, rabies, restaurant, food trucks, well waters, if you need any assistance with animal testing for rabies, you have the report a concern link is listed below. Please feel free to submit that through there. Just note that there's a paper trail, so it's not an anonymous complaint. If someone were to ask for an open records request, your name and phone number will be there. And the last one is just my contact information. If you have any questions, concerns, I have an open door policy. Please feel free to give me a buzz or shoot me an email.
Alrighty, we'll do so. Very much appreciate the presentation. Do you have any questions or? Nope, just let us know how we can help. So.
Perfect, thank you.
All righty, much appreciated. So with that, I'd take a motion to close the Board of Health and reopen as the Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the Board of Health meeting and open BOCC regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close as Board of Health and reopen as the Board of County Commissioners. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We'll move into our discussion items for today. The first is a discussion and a possible approval regarding acceptance of roadways within the Independence community. Welcome.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dale Gillen, Elbert County Engineer with Public Works Road and Bridge. Today I'm presenting to you the resolution for final road acceptance at the Independence subdivision. This will encompass about approximately 10,200 feet of paved road. This includes phases 3 through 7 of filing 1. This will close out filing 1 at Independence subdivision. I personally had went out with our staff at Public Works and the developer to verify that the deficiencies in the 2-year warranty period have been corrected, and they were. So once this is accepted, we'll have the a legal authority to do the snow removal and any repairs we need to on the streets. This will also be placed on the HUTF inventory for state funding. Are there any questions on the information I provided?
Over the last couple of years, there's often been discussions about the general conditions of the roads. Could you make a comment on that? Are they good or they bad, or are they?
Since I've been here, I've just of kind of what has been given to me. I think, some streets in some subdivisions have not been so great, and then others have worked out really well. So, I think overall, I think most of the streets have worked pretty good, except for, a certain phase or area of a couple subdivisions which have had a lot of movement and things like that. So And that's what we're trying to do now too, is because of those problem subdivisions, is how can we get more quality control from our developers and their subcontractors that are putting in the utilities and compaction and all the things that go along with building these streets.
Okay. You had mentioned, I mean, there's always going to be some things that have to be corrected before acceptance. Was there anything unusual or anything of real concern that had to be worked through before we accepted that we should be looking?
No, the 2-year list was done before I was here, but looking at, going over what was on the list was, you know, some asphalt repairs for either heave or settlement patches and due to probably utility installation. You know, gaps in the concrete between asphalt and concrete, and they need to fill those in, raising or lowering, you know, water lines so that they're even with the street for paving or snow removal, things like that. Just kind of typical things that are not anything extreme.
Thank you. And I know you had brought up, you know, certainly different conditions and different subdivisions of different ages. I mean, I think over the years we have gotten much better to have an engineer on staff now to kind of watch things from design through construction through acceptance. I think is going to be of tremendous benefit. I know I've heard stories of decades ago of commissioners being kind of buttonholed in the grocery store to sign off on acceptance, and it's probably apocryphal, but we've gotten much better, and I do know we've got some out there where, you know, the designs were for gravel roads, but it's got a thin layer of asphalt on top, and we accepted it long ago, and now we have to deal with it continuously. So I think the more we ensure anything new is completely to standard, and then I know with a lot of the newer applications coming through, we're leaving perpetual maintenance in the hands of the Metro District. So the impacts, you know, we aren't taking general tax dollars into specific communities that are going to be available more and more as time goes by to work on the roads that serve everyone. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and very glad to have you aboard. So
thank you.
Thanks. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. I do have a question for either of you. It was listed as discussion and possible approval. Is there an urgency, or can we just move this to an acceptance on? Okay, we'll take it to acceptance on our next meeting on consent. So if something does change prior to that, where you have a concern, just let us know. Thank you. Alrighty, discussion and possible action on the third amendment to restated IGA to secure transportation, ambulance licensing and inspection. I know this is kind of well, there've been some changes in what's actually being inspected, so I know it's a change. But if you could, Bart, just kind of take us through this one.
Sure. This is within the Office of Emergency Management wheelhouse, you know, essentially the licensure of ambulance services and transport services, things of that nature have really migrated a little bit more towards the locus of control from the state. And that's a little more uniformity that's being applied there. I believe the actual licensure and approvals associated with that are actually being extended from 1 year to about 2 years. So, you know, it's not something that these entities that deal with this licensure are necessarily going to have to deal with every year. And I think there was some general complaining that it just seemed a little excessive, and it was something that was always on their plate. Yep. So this is really just we've seen this several times. This is an amendment to that to really reflect kind of the additional involvement from the state, and some of those changes to the duration of licensure and transport agencies, that sort of thing.
Any questions? Again, I guess kind of the same question. Is there some urgency or to ensure we're signed off and comply? I'm sure that, I mean, this is, if I recall, this one goes through many agencies, so we may just want to get our approval on it and get it through everybody else.
Yeah, I am not aware that this is an absolute must today.
Okay.
I think we certainly could move forward. I'd be comfortable with that, but in setting it on a future agenda, I don't think that would throw a wrench in the gear, so to speak, either.
Again, to me, it seems pretty straightforward, so since we had it on as potential approval, I'd be okay to accept a motion to approve the IGA that was presented, if somebody would like to.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the IGA as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. Is there any further discussion or any public input? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. So if we could, Emily, once we've signed it, see if we can get back to OEM and get it on to the other signatories so we can get this knocked out. Alrighty. Discussion, possible approval on the updated fleet management policy. Again, I think on Bart's side, I think there was we had updated and approved, and then I know we've had a new fleet manager join us, so, and I know we had a couple of minor things that came up, so.
Correct, yeah, this is, again, this is a slight amendment to something that we've seen fairly recently with regard to all of the fleet vehicles, fleet and equipment that is essentially maintained and overseen by the Public Works Department. We do have a new fleet manager, and he's been able to kind of take a look at the prior policy, and our Public Works Director has taken a look at the edits. He's comfortable with those, and they are minor edits kind of associated with tracking of vehicles and eligibility to utilize county vehicles and equipment. So some minor changes, but some important changes, and it really clarifies responsibilities associated with the vehicles, the entire fleet. You know, the decision-making has been clarified with respect to the role and responsibility of the fleet manager and the Public Works Department. So a couple minor changes, and I think they all kind of have been reviewed at this point by Public Works, and they are comfortable with those.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Just a quick question. Has our fleet manager had a chance to look at the new edits? I was under the impression that he was out of town on vacation.
So he has been out this week, and so I don't believe he's seen the particular edits that have been made. I did speak to him before he left about the general nature of the edits or the updates that were to be made to those to that policy. What I have done is the Public Works Director has reviewed those edits and has indicated that he is comfortable with those. And he's comfortable with moving forward with adoption at this point.
Okay. Oh, hey, Monty, thanks.
Monty Hankins, Elbert County Public Works Director. Yes, I did review them, and the fleet manager does fall under my supervision. I did have a chat discussion with him last week prior to him taking vacation this week concerning this. We were both on the same page. I don't think he specifically read the edits. I have and am comfortable with them. So I guess in speaking on his behalf, I would feel comfortable with moving forward with.
Okay. No, I thank you for that. No, okay, I guess with that, since we had it as a possible approval and that they are relatively minor language changes, I would accept a motion to approve the policy as presented today.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the updated fleet management policy as presented.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the updated fleet management policy as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. I did neglect to ask if there was any input from the public, and seeing none. Okay, so discussion on Mountain View grant of right-of-way agreements.
And this is another item that I can speak to the commission. This is a pretty straightforward and basic agreement where utilities and services are in the process of being installed. This is the precursor to that, just getting their ducks in a row so that they have the location where these utilities are going to be installed ready to go when they have subcontractors or personnel that are ready to go ahead and install. And believe it's generally going to be fiber optic related. Quite frankly, that's going to provide some additional opportunities for citizens and constituents of Elbert County to be able to take part in some services and gain some utilities that they might not have access to now. I have reviewed those agreements. I do not have any concerns over there. Those agreements, they seem pretty straightforward. So I'm comfortable moving forward with those.
Thank you. If I was reading them correctly, that's one just for chair's signature. So I think, and the timing was, I think it was August that they wanted a response. So I think those can just stay on discussion, and unless something else comes to light, we'll take them on consent at our next meeting. As you said, pretty straightforward, and it is part of their the Mountain View's plan to bring fiber to all the homes they serve, which is a pretty good chunk of Elbert County and a pretty good chunk of very rural Elbert County. So, okay, any public input on this? Okay, seeing none, we had, as you remember, want to add to the discussion items and potential action, just to review what we heard at the town hall on last Wednesday. So I know, Dallas, you had asked that this be added. So
yeah, I think it's appropriate to kind of do a rehash of some of the things that we heard at our town hall. It was a robust discussion, and some of the things we heard were accurate and were concerning, and that we needed to investigate a little bit more, but some things were definitely inaccurate as well. And at the not wanting to inflame the audience anymore, sometimes it's better just to listen and do your investigations and be able to report back. So I think it's appropriate for us to be able to respond to some of the things that were said, and perhaps straighten the record out on a few things and misconceptions that people have. So I've got a list here. I don't know if you guys have been contemplating since the town hall what sometimes you wish you would have said, or that help people to understand what really goes on. But I have a few things here that I would like to address and just get on the record. One of the things that we heard particularly was why we were spending money in a certain area and not focusing on another, and particularly with salaries out of our Fund 10. Why wasn't some of that money being directed into Fund 20 to help out the roads? Well, it just flat can't happen. The funding for Fund 20 in our road and bridge is different and separate than it is for our general fund, what we call our Fund 10. And to just willy-nilly transfer money between departments is a no-no. I've been here long enough to remember when I first started, the general fund didn't have enough money to pay its first quarter bills. And so what had to happen is there was a transfer from Road and Bridge, Fund 20, that had some money, but it was done in a public meeting, it was done legally, and it was done as a temporary loan. And so it was all above board completely what was going on. And then as soon as those first tax payments came in, that money was replenished back to Fund 20. So there was complete transparency and accountability for all those funds. And for people to be upset, well, you've got money in this bucket, just take out of there and use it over here. That we just can't do that. That would be not appropriate, and would get us in a lot of trouble with our auditors. They would not be happy about that. So just understanding how the different funds within our budget work, I know any of us would be happy to sit down with citizens that have questions about how that detail is, but need to understand that we have different designated funds for different departments and different reasons. And that was one of the things that I heard Wednesday night that I thought would be appropriate to clarify that. We also heard a couple accusations that we were overstepping our bounds into other electeds' offices. And so I think there's a little misconception as well as to what the role of the commissioners are. And one of our main roles is a fiduciary responsibility. We're responsible for the financial health of the county. And so that goes into managing of the assets of the county. That also goes into trying to prevent liabilities against the county. And so when we see questions, we see issues that we need to address to avoid whether it's a financial issue or a potential HR issue that could potentially lead to litigation. It is our fiduciary responsibility to investigate that and look into that. It's not that we're picking on any department. It's not that we're trying to get somebody, but it's our role and responsibility to make sure that those things are taken care of the way that they should be. And I understand there may not make everybody happy, but that's still one of our primary duties as a fiduciary responsibility as the commissioners. And so we will continue to do that, and people that have not sat on a board where there is a fiduciary responsibility may not fully understand that role, but it is one that we take very serious, and we want to save the taxpayers' money and prevent any litigation against the county. And so that is something that we will continue to do. The way we assure that is through our different policies, our hiring policies, our HR policies, our employee manual, our finance policies. All those are put in place for the protection of the citizens of the county and then the finances of the county. And so it's not an attempt to overreach, but it's an attempt to protect. And sometimes people get a little off on what that's about. Perhaps one of the most troubling questions that we had was about the county manager and the county contract extensions. And so since then, I know I've done a lot of looking around and investigation and how did we come up with those numbers, and I'm quite comfortable that we are within the ranges that were provided for both those individuals, both within the state evaluation, but also within the local county evaluations of different other subdivisions of government that have leaders at their helm and what they are compensated for. But one of the main questions, I guess, that came up was whether this should have been conducted in a complete public forum or if it was something that we considered an employee matter that we could take in-house. And so, Bart, if you could elaborate a little bit on that. I know we had a lady quote some statute to us, and maybe if you can help clarify that a little bit, I would certainly appreciate that.
Sure. My understanding is the statutory language that was cited is from essentially what's referred to as the open records, or excuse me, the open meeting statute. And specifically in that statute, there's a delineation or separation that has applicable parts of that statute. Some are applicable to a state public body, And that is defined as any state agency, state authority, governing board of a state institution of higher education, including the Regents of the University of Colorado, et cetera. It really lists out state institutions and individuals that are under the governor's office as well. That statute specifically calls out political subdivisions of the state. The definition is included in that statute, and is very clear that that is the definition that includes the county, a city and county, town, home rule city, home rule county, and it goes on to basically showcase the local governments. And so within that statute, there's going to be things that are specifically applicable to either a state public body or, in our case, a political subdivision of the state, or applicable to the county and or the Board of County Commissioners. So the section that was cited about compensation refers explicitly to a state public body. This is not a state public body, this is the Board of County Commissioners. And so that differentiation is important to note. Statutory interpretation is important when it calls out the applicability of certain provisions of that particular statute. You need to read it so that those sections that are applicable to the state public body, you group those with that, and those that include portions of the statute that are applicable to the county and the Board of County Commissioners are applicable. So there is a case law that is specifically cited and is specific to this particular question, and that is the Arkansas Valley versus the Lake County Board of County Commissioners. That's a 2015 Court of Appeals case with a specific case law citation of 369 P. 3rd, 725. And the open meetings statute specifically calls out an exemption for day-to-day management by the Board of County Commissioners. And I'll read that. Provisions of this paragraph of this subsection shall not be construed to apply to day-to-day oversight of property or supervision of employees by county commissioners. So that's the specific section that is taken a look at by that case law that I cited. And within that case that has been cited, the court goes on to say the phrase day-to-day is not ambiguous. It would lead to an absurd result to require all disciplinary or other supervisory matters for an employee to require a quorum of a board of members to be discussed in public meetings. For example, employee supervision, including discipline or periodic performance evaluation of an employee. And so performance evaluation and the things that bear out of those, typically compensation and contracts, believe are specifically addressed. And that does not, I think it's pretty clear that while compensation on the state boards is specifically called out in the statute as something that has a specific process to it, when it comes to counties and day-to-day supervision, it's pretty clear in that specific statutory citation in that case law that day-to-day management includes those specific things that I mentioned. And so, no, I don't believe that there is something that was missed that was required. I think certainly the county manager and the county attorney's office are under the direct supervision and control of the Board of County Commissioners. And so that's what my research showed.
Yeah, kind of had the floor. So as I'm looking at it, I absolutely, I think it's very understandable why you wouldn't want to hold an employee's evaluation in a public meeting when it comes to a necessity to, well, I guess from what you had described, there's not a firm statutory requirement to actually have a discussion or adoption on the compensation side in a public meeting for a local government. There's nothing that would preclude that from happening.
I agree. I don't think there's anything that precludes it either.
Okay, thank you.
Well, just maybe a summary. I also just want to remind everybody in the public that's listening that we are more than welcome to sit down and talk with anybody. We have open door policies, and perhaps that's one of the most disappointing things to me. It seemed that some of the citizen comments were playing to the audience. They weren't necessarily trying to look for information. And the best place to come get information is from the source, and come talk to us. And we'll be happy to show you what we have and explain our situations. But our society has become angrier and grumpier, it seems, particularly since COVID. We saw it over in the SEB when I was there with motor vehicle transactions. People's tempers are just shorter. It's a lot easier to jump on social media and bash people and go after things that you maybe don't have all the information about, and not really sit down with individuals who do have the information. And to me, that's disappointing that we've reached that point in our society. I don't know how we overcome it. I think it probably happens everywhere. But I would just encourage our citizens, if you have questions, give us a call, let us know. We received very little feedback other than the town hall. And so that's troubling to me. One of the other accusations that we had was that the intention of the extension of the contracts was to kind of bind the future board with that. And that was not the discussion. That wasn't the idea behind it all. It's been standard practice of this board before I was even here to extend those contracts on a yearly basis, even though the contract was for 2 years, for the purpose of providing continuity and assurance to the people in the leadership positions of where they stood. And so many of our projects are multi-year projects. Multi-year planning goes into it, and it's important that we have those people in place that we're able to continue to do that. So I hope that our incoming board doesn't feel that it was a slight against them, because it was not. It was just a continuation of our standard practice that this board has done for several years now, even before I was part of the board, of extending those contracts. So it makes me wonder why all of a sudden this one became in the public spotlight, if it's been the procedure that's been going on for several years, and suddenly there's an issue with that aspect of the budget, or aspect of the contracts. We were late in getting our evaluations done, and so it should have been done at the first part of the year, but it wasn't, and so that's on us. But that's why the length of the contract extension, and people just need to understand that that's where we're at. I guess in light of the conversation we followed what we needed to follow, but that doesn't mean we can't exceed, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I think there's been plenty of discussion on this topic, certainly in this room and outside of this room. The board is not forestalled from doing things within a meeting of this sort. So I don't think that is prohibited either.
Grant, did you have something you wanted to?
I want to compliment my fellow commissioner in covering the material that has been going through my mind over and over again. One of the things that I've had 3 or 4 people call me, and one of my attitude is my door is always open. If you want to come and discuss some specific item or a general item, you're welcome to call me, and we'll set up a face-to-face conversation. And it was interesting, a couple of the people I said that to did not feel comfortable with that answer. But I do feel very comfortable talking to people, even if they and I do not agree. I still choose to discuss it and hopefully come up to a reasonable conclusion.
again, I think Dallas, you kind of covered the broad topics very well. I did want to kind of point out on the road piece and transfer of funds, actually, when we collect monies for roads countywide, there is a share that goes back to the municipalities. So that's kind of where this preclusion of using general fund monies on roads really comes from. Because, you know, as county commissioners, we could, if we could just use general fund money on roads and wanted to keep it all and not share to those that have roads that we aren't responsible for. And in the towns, we could set the road and bridge mill to zero, and we will not. So Monty, please don't have a heart attack. And pull it all into the general fund and then send it back. There are some provisions in emergencies where you can make transfers of, I believe it's up to $500,000, but then it still has to be paid back. So, again, the concerns about overstepping into elected offices. I know Dallas has spent 10 years as clerk, and we certainly had some robust conversations over the years on some of the things that were just general employment policy, and we have with other electeds as well. But at the end of the day, you know, we've not inserted ourselves into their operational requirements, how they do their job. Those are very clearly within their bailiwick, but we do have a responsibility to make sure that all employees are treated in the same manner, that all situations are treated consistently across the county. If we put requirements on employees broadly in the county to do something, and in some cases failure to do so has resulted in termination, and then in other offices nobody's being held to that, then we are setting up a potential lawsuit from an employee that may have been terminated for something that wasn't required of other employees in the exact situation. So that's kind of been the essence of where we've been looking. And then the others was just ensuring, again, in areas of time card usage, tracking of employee time, we want to make sure that people are not, you know, out of the goodness of their hearts, giving us time that they're not compensated for. In the worst case, that's wage theft, and that's not something we want to be involved. That's not something we want to be involved in. We do want to make sure that every hour somebody works is compensated. In terms of the contracts, I know that was covered. I do believe, again, my question on, are we precluded from doing more? We have always operated, since I've been here, to increase transparency of what we're doing in government. It was very clear that regardless of whether people agreed or disagreed with the decision we had made, I think the biggest piece that we heard was they were unaware. And I think when you're unaware of something, certainly in today's environment, it almost defaults to something is being hidden, or there is some nefarious reason why somebody didn't know. So I do think we can do better in that respect, and we can probably start that today. But in terms of the amount of compensation, I know there were a lot of people that raised eyebrows at what salaries were set at, but really sitting down after the fact, we certainly had information coming and salary ranges that had been determined professionally, but I think we can all, you know, at risk of doing amateurish work, everybody can look online and find information that either supports a decision that they've been made or negates a decision that somebody else has made. But if we look at the compensation of those that are around us, you know, if you look at the three big counties that are around us, they are competitors for all our employees. We certainly have lost everybody from grader operators to deputies to others, and we've worked very hard over the last several years to bring pay up to parity with those that are an easy choice to make. In some cases, we have employees that bypass higher paying positions to commute here to work, and I applaud them for that because they're, I think, a great place to work. But that being said, if you look at those counties, they are bigger. The roles of county manager, where they have them, Arapahoe operates a little different structure, or county attorney, they all have deputies. So in the terms of our county manager, he has 10 or 11, if I'm not miscounted, direct reports that he's responsible for providing direct oversight and management to directors or department heads. He's responsible for the care and feeding, essentially, of an additional 7 elected offices, the offices of the county commissioner, and then our other electeds, where he is providing, through his subordinates, IT, HR, finance, facilities maintenance, et cetera, that affects everybody. And he does that on his own. A highly talented, highly skilled, very experienced person that we recruited, and it was a nationwide search firm that recruited for us. If you look at that function in the other counties where there's deputies, the combined salary of the two people, you know, the principal and his deputy, range from, looks like the, you know, about mid 400s to the very high 400,000s. So, and again, that's a combined workload that's borne alone here. The same is true of the kind of the combination of a county attorney and a deputy county attorney. They're still in that mid to high 400s range, pushing 500. So when we're looking at you know, parity between ourselves and other governments, that's very important. And then the internal parity. And as you look at those, the county manager and attorneys in just about every place I've looked are right about, I mean, if they're not identical, they're very close. So, I mean, that's a little easier, I said on last Wednesday, to look at what a county manager does, what his decisions have brought us. In the case of our current county manager, he has either avoided or saved us about $1 million in costs since he's been here. That far outstrips the increase he was given. In the terms of our county attorney, the risk avoidance, the avoidance of lawsuits is always hard to put a number on what didn't happen, but very comfortable that this person is earning their pay, and I appreciate that. But I think going forward, though, it was very clear that folks did want, you know, a large number of people, certainly not, you know, a poll of the entire county, but it seems like the desire is that this be done, that contracts and final compensation be approved in a formal public meeting like we're having now. So I think that it would be the right thing to do after the discussion last week, this week, to do so, and recognize that we're now setting a precedent for future boards. And it may be wise to actually even set in policy of some manner so it can be understood and shared with everybody what the process is within the county going forward. In terms of the extensions, I did have one couple come visit last week, and we talked about that at length. And as Dallas said, nothing was intended to do to tie any future board's hands. What we're really looking for in our role as commissioners has always been, in my mind, as caretakers of the county, and to ensure that things are getting better and that we have stability and continuity moving forward. We certainly, this coming January, will have a change in commissioners, at least 2 of the 3. So potentially a new board majority may have a different path, different goals, and that's fine. As a commission, we make decisions and set goals for the entire county. And then if there's not people to carry that out, that decision lays here on this table and nothing happens. So having good people, professional folks to carry out the decisions of the Board of County Commissioners is very important. But as I said, as we look to the future and we look to ensure good continuity, not only do we have a change this year, but we're rolling into what will be significant changes potentially in this county and the loss of experience going forward 2 years. Our treasurers, we've got 30 years of experience there, 8 years as a treasurer, currently term limited. I know we had some discussion earlier about some potential asks to the people to extend, but we will lose all that experience from the treasurer's office and somebody new will come in. She accounts for our money. She holds our money. She collects and disperses for every local government within the county. Our assessor, decades of experience within the county. 8 years as our assessor, years before as our deputy assessor. She's term limited in 2 years. They're the ones that bring money into the county. Our sheriff, term limited. He's frankly the biggest consumer of the general fund at about 45% or so of what we collect and spend each year out of the general fund. Our coroner, maybe not as a big an impact on the day-to-day operations of the county, but a huge impact on citizens that have suffered a loss. Between she and Mike have served this county for decades, and that's going to be a huge change. Our surveyor has another term, a very technical job. Our clerk and recorder, if she chooses to run and the people choose to extend her, will remain. Dallas, if he chooses to run and the people re-elect him, will remain. But we have some beyond the board, I guess. I hate to use the term second level because everybody works together in this county well, but we have a huge middle piece of our county in the day-to-day management and execution of things that support our citizens that could change dramatically in the next couple of years. And that was what was in my mind as we looked at what we wanted to extend contracts to. None of these do bind the future commissioners. They can make decisions, certainly as a board, to change personnel, the employees. These contracts do provide some security for our senior two folks. It's not out of line. I was actually looking at the public contract, the contract that was published for, again, not singling people out, but down the road in Elizabeth, they initially brought in their current town manager with the same 6 months if they just decided as a board to make a change without cause. That has been extended to 9 months and has an escalation to over time up to a full year. So we're not out of line with what other local governments do. We're not really out of line if you look at those other small governments in salary. Again, the town manager, I believe, is making in the around 180 or is on track to get to about 180. The superintendent of schools in Elizabeth is, I believe, around 186. And again, this is all public. So we're not out of line with our peer governments in the county, our peer governments at the county level around us. And certainly internally, I don't think we've done anything or said anything that's completely out of line with what folks are around. But I do believe that we potentially surprised the public. It's something they didn't anticipate. So with that, I do think the right thing to do, and then establish moving forward, and again, future boards could change that, is just publicly ratify the decision that we made with those contracts. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I would invite any comment from the room. And seeing none, if somebody would like to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, since we've had extensive public comment at our last meeting and at our town hall and today, I move that we ratify the contracts for our county manager and county attorney.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to ratify the contracts that were recently renewed for the county manager and the county attorney, and doing so in this public meeting. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thus ends our discussion and action topics. We have some purely action items. The first is consideration of the July 10th minutes. I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes from the July 10, 2024 meeting and dispense with the reading of those minutes.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes of July 10th and dispense with the reading. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. And second, we have consideration of a resolution to appoint a hearing officer for the Board of Equalization for 2024. This is something we've done annually. I believe this year we have 2 requests coming for adjustment of values and 2 rebate requests. Traditionally we have, well, not traditionally, 8 years ago, Grant, myself, and Commissioner Wilcox sat and listened and tried to do our best, and I see the assessor shaking her head to hear about 76 appeals to valuations. And though we felt at the time the right thing to do was to hear our citizens and make decisions publicly and in our role as commissioners and as our role as the Board of Equalization. In hindsight, it really became clear that this is not our professional area of expertise. And from that year on, we have hired somebody who's very qualified with a high level of certification and experience to actually hear appeals and to make recommendations to us. And I think that is, I know that has worked much better for us, and I think much better for the public. There's a lot more consistency. We tend to be tremendously empathetic, and sometimes the decisions I think we made that first time were not based on as much on the facts that they should have been based on, but are, you know, they were made with our hearts, not our heads, and that's not right, and potentially could lead to concerns of being arbitrary and how taxation is done. So the resolution does identify 2 people, one who has done this for several years for us, who will be a backup, and a new primary. And I do think that makes sense as well, because we don't want to have too much of a habitual relationship with somebody who's making these recommendations. We don't want them to be seen as a functional arm of the board, but actually a independent arbiter that's making recommendations to us. So I believe bringing in a new person to be the primary and still having a backup so things can be done if there is a problem or somebody falls ill is the right thing to do. So that was fairly lengthy, but anything that anybody would like to add?
No, the 2 hearing officers, one is newly appointed, and then the other backup is one that we've used in prior years. I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution to appoint hearing officers for the Board of Equalization for 2024.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the resolution to appoint a hearing officers, a primary and a backup for the Board of Equalization in 2024. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. All righty. That is the completion of our morning work. Certainly we'll have minutes from this meeting to consider next time. We had a couple of items that we wanted to bring forward for decision. So we'll capture those. that gets us a good start. We do have 2 land use items this afternoon. The first is likely just be a quick opening and continuation on a request for changes to some Metro District service plans within Spring Valley. The other is a economic development zone site improvement plan submission for high-tech RV and boat storage. Those will be public hearings for land use, and then we'll have a public hearing on some regulatory updates that have been recommended by staff through the Planning Commission to us. So that's what we will be working this afternoon. So it's 11:06. We're in recess. We'll reconvene at this location at 1 p.m. today for land use. Thank you.